Welcome to the Confidence Formula, week 12. We are getting into the final stage, what I call the decision maker. And I have up here a quote in binary code. This is the two words decision maker written out in binary. And I'll get into what that's about in a minute, but we're actually going to take that as an analogy for how we want to make decisions. It's all ones and zeros, keep things very simple and to allow us to make quicker decisions by allowing us only two options. Then we're going to cover what I call the decision tree, how one decision leads to another that branches off into two more options and leads to another and so forth. And then finally, building skills downstream from decisions and how we think about creating skills by starting with the context of a game situation and building downstream from your decision to your skill so that it matters when you're practicing a skill, you know where it fits into the bigger picture of the game context. So let's talk about binary decision making. Best way I've found to describe this is like an on-off switch. So if you're going to make a decision between two options, like I mentioned, binary code is ones and zeros. That's about all I know about coding. But there's only two options, therefore it has to be one or the other. But unlike binary code, where those two options are fairly equivalent, it's very important for decision making that you have an on switch. You have something that is your default move that is always on. For instance, we're going to talk a lot about catch and shoot versus drive scenario, closeout situation in a game. It's much more to your advantage to be a shooter first when you catch a pass, because the defender then has to come and guard you, and you can still drive from the position you caught it in. Where you were going to take the shot, you can go from a shot position to a drive very easily. But the opposite is not true. If you catch ready to drive, you're going to be lunging, leaning forward, and about to dribble, and actually have to rebalance back up, potentially move backwards to get balance enough to take the shot. So if you were thinking drive and then you recognize their defense is way off of you and you got room to shoot and you have to back up and shoot it, you're going to have a lot lower percentage shot. And so we call that our order of operations, which we've talked about a little bit already. But we want to always be choosing which is our primary default move that is our on switch, and then choosing our counter move that's going to be the off switch, what we're going to do instead. And then the trigger, what I call a cue, is what triggers the decision to change. So always on, like shoot, 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 always shoot. Defender's hand up would be a cue. That means drive. And I never had to think about driving until I saw the hand up. I was always going to shoot the shot, and I fully believed I was going to shoot the shot. The defender fully believed I was going to shoot the shot, and they overplayed the shot, and that's why the drive was now way more open than it would have been otherwise. So all this boils down to my favorite phrase I've been able to create out of this is two moves and a cue. You just need to know the game situation. What are the two best options to decide between given that situation? And then which one's the default and which cue you're going to use to flip the switch and do the counter move instead of the primary move. So the decision tree kind of comes from that. If we have two options and we choose option A, then whatever path that leads us down is going to lead us to the next decision. And when we choose between that, it's going to also split. Now we have option X. And usually by a third decision, or maybe a fourth in some scenarios, we will have ended our possession. We'll have given it to a teammate, we'll have taken a shot, maybe we lost the ball in some scenarios, but three, potentially four decisions at a maximum, in my experience, is where most possessions will take you. And so we just need to get good at what are the most frequent, most high leverage primary decisions, such as closeout scenario again, which I have listed out here. If you catch and you have a choice between a shot and a drive, that happens a lot in a game. So getting good at that one makes sense. And then if you shot it, that's kind of the end of that possession already. Ball's out of your hands. We're entering a new decision tree of, do I crash into rebound? Do I get back on defense? Like you can take this as far as you want to as a mental exercise. But if we drive, then we have another decision, which is, do I continue going straight on my drive to the basket, or maybe there's a defender in my way, I need to change direction. So that's where a cue comes in. Just like defender's hand up means we drive instead of shoot. If a help defender is stepping into our path, that usually means we're changing direction, or maybe we're going to pass. Again, it depends on the situation we've set up for ourselves. And then the third layer decision would be, maybe I changed direction, and now I'm at the rim. And do I finish at the rim over maybe one defender, or is there another help defender coming? And now the kick out pass makes the most sense. And so knowing, again, that order of operations, which is the on switch and which is the off switch, and which is the cue or the trigger that's going to change my mind, you can pre-plan those and actually practice those in advance, which if you look back at our 12 weeks together, that's what I've been doing with you all along. This is just kind of the icing on the cake to show you how that works so that you can take this idea and use it on your own. And then the bottom line here is the importance of context. So it would be impossible for me to say universally in any game of basketball, you should always do only one of these two options, right? And that's where most people get off track when I first talk about this. The only way that's possible is by zeroing in our focus to a very small, specific situation, right? We are in a ball screen with a hedge style help defense. Therefore, our options are A, B, and our decision is A, and our counter move is B, and the trigger is the hedge defender, right? And you can apply this in a million different scenarios, but the important thing is getting that context built so that when you're in your driveway, it's not just I am la-di-da with the ball around all over the place, doing whatever shots occur to me. I am actually thinking through, okay, it's catch and drive, and defenders coming across the rim to help, and I'm going Euro step and then finish, right? You can work on that and mentally engage yourself on a much higher level to make your practice more effective and translate better to a game. This is what my mental model looks like. So you picked any situation. We take our catch closeout situation, we catch a pass. This would be shot, this would be drive, right? So if we shoot it, we could say the play is over, or we could follow the chain. We shot it. It was our role to crash in to rebound. So we crashed to the front of the rim, rebound, and then we got boxed out and we did a spin move off of the box out, and maybe we got the rebound at the end, right? We could follow that chain. Or we drove it and we went straight and no help defense came. We finished a layup with a straight line drive, right? Or we drove it, there was help defense, we crossed over, and then weak side rim defender came, we kicked it out, and teammate took a shot, right? And then again, after the shot, we'd enter another decision tree of, okay, now teammate shot, do I box out? Do I get back on defense? Like, what's my next best primary move? And then what's the counter move? And what's the trigger? So you can go down the rabbit hole of just mentally thinking through a lot of different chain reactions like this. But it's the best way I've found to really be specific with your decision making without getting off track and predetermining 3 steps ahead. So there's a famous quote that I really love from Kobe Bryant when he was talking to a group of players in China. One of them asked, what move should I be working on? And he said, I only have 2 moves. I go right and I go left, and the rest is up to the defense. And that's really what we're talking about here. Instead of, if you're a high school guy, you really like this ball handling move combination with some step back and reattack and who knows, half spin, Kobe pivot, fadeaway, right? You might script all that out and like do it in your driveway, and you might try it in a game, and it's like a coin toss whether the defense is reacting to it in the way you expected and actually getting thrown off and giving you an open shot, or they watch you pivot and then they are there and block you because you predetermined all the things you were going to do before you took any action. You had none of it reacting to the defense. So to Kobe's point, he's just taking one action, whatever the defense did, he knew what his next action was going to be. If they stopped it, he would go a different direction. If they didn't stop it, he scored. And really, he could chain together 5 or 6 or 7 of those really good skills and score on every single one of them, no matter what the defense did. As soon as they made an error, he scored. He wasn't trying to get to level 7 complexity before he took a shot. He was scoring on level 1 every time until they learned how to stop him, and then he would elevate and escalate and do moves and counter moves. And that would take him through an incredible chain of different combinations of skills. But again, the point is, none of that was pre-scripted. All of it was live reaction to what his defender was giving him. So I'm going to show you an example from a one-on-one scenario where I did this with a player last year. And this is simply catching and driving and having a straight line drive. So we're working on what I'd call level 2 decision. So we had already worked through what you guys are familiar with by this point of just the closeout out here. So he was catching and having the decision to shoot or drive. And then I changed it so that this was now automated decision. So he's driving every time, so we can work on level 2 decision. And now I'm a help defender. I'm either swiping an arm in his path, which means he can still go through contact and go straight, or I'm stepping my body in his path, in which case he's going to change direction. And now he's making a decision on the weak side of the rim. Is he going to finish? Or if I step in his way as that weak side rim defender, is he going to Euro step and actually finish away from me again? So this is a level 3 decision. What his default is here is to finish straight across the rim. He reacts to second decision. Third defender never comes. He's finishing across the rim. So that's his default. The trigger is rim defender steps up in his path. He's changing direction to finish on the left side of the rim. So this is just an example of one scenario that we're going to walk through on the court this week, trying to get good at level 1 decision leads to level 2 decision leads to level 3 decision, and you actually find yourself beating 3 defenders and making 3 decisions on your way to the basket, and that becomes fairly normalized over time. And stuff that you probably already do in a game, this is just a conscious way to get you thinking about how to improve and refine and actually consciously choose in advance what your best option should be in a given situation. So let's talk about building skills. Most people, most coaches have you work on skills before they connect it to the game. So isolated skills is what I call that. Working on stationary ball handling while you stare at the wall in the garage, or stationary shooting with no game context means you're building a skill over here, and then the coach is hoping that you're going to be able to take that little brick and build a building out of it later. But what I've found is that the pyramid is upside down. We're working on all the skills first and eventually getting up to decisions. And I think we should work the other direction. We should be getting really good at decisions and using those in our tree approach, decisions, and then skills downstream from decisions. So if we get good at decisions first, we get the most leverage in the game of basketball. Like I could choose to take the best shot wide open first. And by choosing to do that and taking that shot all the time, I'm going to get better at shooting, even if I don't do anything else. But chances are, seeing that opportunity that I am wide open, I'm going to work on shooting so I can make more of those. And then we need to realize there are multiple solutions to any problem, right? So if you give yourself a really tiny box of a game situational context, you could come up with lots of different ways that you could approach that. And that's kind of where your creativity as a basketball player starts to come out. Like you could just mentally walk through, okay, I could do this combination skill. I could do this into a pass. I could do that into a finish. I could do this pivot and then maybe shoot it, or this pivot as a fake to then get another kind of shot. Like you can come up with all kinds of different solutions, but the real secret is to mentally engage with the decision part of it inside of a tiny box of a game situation. And then you can start to think of the skill as a useful tool to solving a very specific problem. And this is what I really love to do. Like, I don't like to give you a skill as just I'm doing it because coach said so. I like to show you the problem in a game scenario and then give you a skill. Like would you like a cookie? Right? Here's a skill. It's a useful tool to solve this specific problem that you now just experienced and realize the need for. If I was just making you do skills without showing you how they actually worked and fit into a game, you'd be like, I don't need that skill. It's just something coach said to do. Right. And I'm all about making things work better for you. So if you're already doing a skill that is a counter move to what I see as a better primary move, then I'm going to talk about that. Like, your finger roll finish is actually a counter move to a push finish. Like if you can get the push finish working all the time, then you can take a lot more contact, you can have a little more control and power. And then if people are trying so hard to stop that, you can switch it and do your finger roll, your inside hand, or different types of finishes as a counter move. And suddenly you're a lot more deadly than just picking this cool move that felt good and you liked, and like doing that as your default and probably getting blocked a lot more and missing more than you otherwise should. And all this really boils down to your own motivation. So, one outcome that I really look for from you going through this course is that your motivation is high to work on your own. Like we're showing you not only the decisions and the skills as useful tools, but really how to practice and make it matter. So I'm all about making it matter so that you know exactly where the skill fits into a very specific game that you've already experienced and knew was a problem for you. And now you're practicing the solution. And you're like, man, I'm going to do 100 of these types of left hand dribble pull-ups out of a dribble handoff because I've seen that in a game and I always get off balance and miss that shot, right? Whatever that might be for you right now, you can tackle it by just having this mindset. So I'm going to read this because you may be listening and not actually watching on the screen. This is something I wrote as like my ideal vision for you. So I put at the top here, my wish for you is to become a decision maker. And I think of a decision maker like a business settings, like the person you want to talk to get stuff done. And I want you to be that in your basketball realm, on your team, to your coach, and in your life. I want you to be the decision maker. So I called this the Decision Maker Manifesto. A decision maker is well informed, experienced, trusted, deliberate, intentional, empowered, knowledgeable, certain, confident, and decisive. A decision maker takes action, willingly accepts responsibility for their action, and measures their results. They seek feedback early and often and see all feedback as information they can use to improve. They treat games as experiments, constantly testing new ideas, concepts, strategies, and skills to enable better decisions in the future. They build habits that become instincts and enhance them into fluent, effortless, spontaneous creative actions and reactions to whatever comes their way. A decision maker leverages their mental advantage to amplify their athletic ability. They choose to spend their practice time on the decisions they need to make most frequently and the skills they need to use most often. They thrive in chaos, adapting, improvising, and creating solutions to overcome any obstacles they discover in any game situation. A decision maker never hesitates, knowing a quick, decisive action is always beats a slow, hesitant attempt. They make no excuses, never blaming refs, teammates, or coaches, instead consciously choosing to find areas to improve their sense of control over their performance and their chance of success, no matter how much the odds are stacked against them. Decision makers define their own destiny, create their own luck, define their own success, and chart a path to their dreams, punching their own ticket to their next level. I am a decision maker, and I decide my fate. Summarizing this week, game situation is the most important. You have to understand the context of what you're working in order to make better decisions and to practice making better decisions. Simple decisions equal speed. And why we like to have only an on-off switch, 2 moves and a cue, is because it's a lot faster. If you introduce even one more third option, like most coaches would say, triple threat to be able to shoot, pass, or drive. But by the time you evaluate whether to shoot, whether to drive right or left, and which of your four teammates you might pass to, your opportunity advantage is gone. So simplifying again by squeezing down the situation to only two options, binary decisions give you a lot of certainty. I don't have to look around and hesitate and think about what I might or might not do. It's shoot or drive. And I get a lot of certainty by having simple binary options in front of me. And then build skills downstream from decisions. Means that you're never bored and you're always motivated. If you're connecting the game situation to the decision you need to make, to the skill you need to improve to execute on that decision, your mind is going to be massively more engaged with your own practice. Even if you're on your own in the park, in your driveway, wherever you work on your game on your own, you're going to have limitless motivation and kind of an infinite depth to your practice because you can imagine an infinite number of scenarios within a game in which to practice the skills that you really need to improve. So I hope all 12 of these weeks have not only increased your certainty and your confidence, but have moved you toward becoming a decision maker. I'll see you on the court.